Watchman Dorn had been on the eastern sector of Dearden's inland wall for 6 years. And for 18 months of those 6 years, he had been submitting reports that came back as seasonal variability. The reports described a behavior change in the dead at the base of the eastern sector between marker posts 22 and 29. Not an increase in pressure. The pressure was what it always was. The slow, consistent weight of the interior boundary against the wall's base. 2 centuries of documentation establishing the baseline and the variance. What Dorn had been logging was something inside the drift behavior, a secondary pattern that emerged and submerged and appeared to be increasing in frequency and duration. Groups of 8 to 15 dead would, in brief episodes lasting 4 to 10 minutes, orient toward each other rather than toward the wall. A lateral coherence, coordinated. Nothing like the standard boundary-seeking drift. He had watched it happen 43 times. He had documented every instance. He had submitted 4 formal reports, 4 acknowledgements, seasonal variability. He had started a personal log at Report 3 because the institutional record was not going to contain what was actually happening, and what was actually happening deserved a record somewhere. The personal log lived in the locked drawer of his quarters and not in any official wall watch archive, which was the only place it was going to be accurate. 6 days ago, the anomaly had changed. He was on the 3rd watch at the cold season's first frost when a single figure broke from the coordinated cluster at the eastern sector base and moved toward the wall. Not drifting, moving with direction and speed, covering the 100 meters to the wall's base in 14 seconds. He had timed it. 3 seconds of scraping. The specific sound of something attempting to scale dressed stone. Then the figure appeared at the wall's top, not at a gate, not at a breach, at the solid face between marker posts 24 and 25. 6 meters of dressed stone. Dorn put a bolt through it. The figure dropped back over the outer face. He noted the time. He noted the location. He noted what the figure had just done in plain language in the personal log rather than the official notation, because the plain language was what it required, and the official notation did not have a category for what he had just watched. The official report went in the following morning. Specific. Documented. The movement profile, the wall clearing capability, the bolt placement, the collapse. He had attached a note requesting clarification on what the current documented maximum wall scaling capability for boundary dead was. Because whatever he had watched last night exceeded it. The acknowledgement arrived in 2 days, rather than the usual 4. He noted this, the first timing change in 18 months of correspondence. He thought it meant the report had been read more carefully than the others. The acknowledgement said, "Observations consistent with known seasonal variability." He sat with the acknowledgement for a while. Not angry. He had stopped being angry about the acknowledgements somewhere around Report 2. He sat with it the way he sat with the 3rd watch on a cold night, which was simply present with what was there. Then he opened the personal log and wrote the 5th report in it. The one that went nowhere. The one that was for the record rather than for the institution. He wrote what the figure had done, and what the acknowledgement had said, and what the 18 months of documentation looked like when you laid the 43 orientation episodes against the escalating timeline. Something was changing in the dead at the eastern sector. It had been changing for 18 months in a specific direction. 6 days ago, it had produced a capability that 2 centuries of wall watch documentation had not recorded. He closed the personal log. He looked at the wall. From the eastern sector walk, the interior boundary was immediately visible. The gray-brown territory beyond the stone, the dead at the base doing what they did, the specific quality of the air on that side that everyone who worked the wall learned to know without being taught. The children of Dearden grew up with this view. It made them precise about things they were not told to be precise about. Dorn had not been born in Dearden, but 6 years on the eastern sector had given him the same precision. The dead below the wall were in their standard drift pattern. No orientation episode tonight. The pressure from the eastern sector had changed quality since 6 days ago. Not more dangerous, differently pointed, as if whatever had directed the figure toward the wall had redirected its attention elsewhere. He noted it in the personal log. Then he did something he had not done in 18 months of logging. He pulled a fresh sheet of paper and wrote a letter to the Tidebreak Fleet's Dearden Garrison Intelligence Office. The office had posted a standing request to the Wall Watch Command 6 months ago. Any anomalous, undead behavior reports. Contact this office directly. He had not contacted them because he had been uncertain whether what he was documenting met the threshold for anomalous. 6 meters of dressed stone in 14 seconds had resolved his uncertainty. He wrote the letter. He attached a copy of the personal log. He sealed it. The Wall Watch changed shift at the 4th hour. He gave his replacement the standard briefing, sector status, pressure reading, nothing to flag, which was accurate in all the ways the official record was accurate. He carried the letter home. Tomorrow, it would go to the garrison office rather than the Wall Watch Command, which was not the correct reporting chain, and was the only reporting chain that had not yet told him his observations were consistent with known seasonal variability. The eastern sector's dead settled into the drift that they always settled into. Whatever had changed had moved on. He would be back on the 3rd watch tomorrow. He would keep looking.